We start this hour with a major development in the Gaza conflict. Hamas has agreed to a ceasefire proposal put forward by US Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff. According to reports, the plan includes a 70-day truce and the release of 10 hostages in 2 phases. The agreement marks a potential turning point in the war, with negotiations expected to continue during the truce period to work towards a permanent ceasefire. Reports further state that Hamas accepted the deal based on US guarantees. The White House has not yet commented publicly, but sources say regional mediators have been notified of the breakthrough. Well, of course, this breaking news needs discussion, and joining us to do that is Yossi Kupawasa, an Israeli intelligence and security expert who is joining us from Tel Aviv. Yossi, as always, thank you ever so much for being here with us. We've heard that Hamas have agreed to this Steve Witkoff proposal. Do you think Israel will follow suit?
First of all, thank you for having me. The reports so far are vague and conflicting, so it's very difficult to say whether this is a breakthrough or not. It's definitely looking like an attempt by Hamas to create the impression that they are ready to allow a breakthrough without giving too much concessions to Israel. Well, we should wait and see whether this is something that is confirmed. In general, if this is true, then it indicates that there was some change in the Hamas position. But according to Hamas sources, I must say, they say that there was no change, and they are ready to have release of some hostages in return for a permanent ceasefire, not for 70 days ceasefire. So we just have to wait and see. If this is about a permanent ceasefire, Israel is not going to accept it. If it's going to be a question of how many days exactly this ceasefire is going to last, then this is debatable, and there can be some sort of understanding. The original proposal, by the way, was about 42 days. Now the new piece of information is about 70 days. I'm not sure that Israel is going to accept 70 days, but maybe we can go from 42 to 50 or something like that.
Yes, Yossi, we are, of course, waiting for concrete confirmation from Hamas, and also waiting for a response from Israel. Given that a previous ceasefire deal was agreed, which saw partial hostage releases in exchange for, of course, a ceasefire, but also a prisoner exchange as well. Do you think that the Netanyahu government will be positively thinking about this, given that we know he's been very clear that he wants to take the control of Gaza completely and look at the full release of hostages rather than just another partial release?
Well, first of all, we don't want to take control of Gaza completely. We just are forced to do that because there's no other way to convince Hamas to give up the control of Gaza that they have at this point. But we said all the time that we are ready to accept the Witkoff proposal, the original Witkoff proposal, and if there's a chance to release some of the hostages, half of the living hostages more or less, within an agreement about temporary ceasefire, we are ready to do that. And if Hamas has agreed to this principle, this is a move forward. But as I said, we have to wait and see. Well, we are not looking for taking over the Gaza Strip. What we want to see is Hamas removed from power over there and replaced by somebody who is more ready to live side by side with Israel in peace. That's the problem. Hamas and many other Palestinians, but definitely Hamas, looks at the Gaza Strip as a launching pad for terror attacks like the one they carried out on 7th of October 2023, and that is something totally unacceptable for Israel. So it's they have to be removed from power and replaced by somebody else that has a different opinion about what Gaza should be used for. And one of the programs that we have on the agenda is the proposal of President Trump that wants to see Gaza turning into a Riviera. So we just have to wait and see if there's a possibility to move in this direction.
Yes, absolutely. Yossi, a part of this deal, reports at least, are saying that there would be US guarantees for Hamas, while we've had no confirmation from any side over what these would be. Do you think if Israel were to move forward, there would need to be guarantees for them as well, potentially about the release of the bodies of the hostages that remain in Hamas control that are dead, and also guarantees around Netanyahu's key points, which are disarmament and disbandment of Hamas in Palestine and Gaza?
Well, I don't think that we are going to accept anything short of dismantlement of Hamas and removing them from power as a condition for permanent ceasefire. But for a temporary ceasefire, we can accept an exchange of hostages for Palestinian terrorists that are in Israeli jails. That is something that was taking place in former ceasefires and exchange deals, and we can do that again. That is acceptable as a temporary and interim step, because at the end of this war, Hamas should not be allowed to be the ruler of Gaza.
Yes, Yossi, we know that there have been protests in Israel around the continuation of hostages being held by Hamas, demonstrations against the government and the action that they have been carrying out. Do you think there will be pressure within Israel, if these reports are true, for the Netanyahu government to agree to this partial release of hostages and a 70-day truce?
Well, you know, Israelis, we are a very thriving democracy, and everything we have different opinions, and there's going to be demonstrations. Whatever happens, there are always demonstrations in Israel. That is to be expected, but the government has a very clear position and has a very wide majority in the Knesset, in the parliament. So it's going to be able to withstand any pressure from the opposition, and that's not going to be something that's going to change its mind. As I said, 70 days, 42 days, something in between, that can be discussed. But permanent ceasefire without Hamas removed from power, this is something that this government definitely is not going to accept. And I don't think that anybody should accept it. I know the Americans are against it. So I don't think that the Americans are going to give the Hamas guarantees that they are going to stay in power. This is against the American position, not only against the Israeli position. And the guarantees that we have is the power we have, that our ability to put more pressure on Hamas. That is the guarantee that we have in order to convince Hamas to release the hostages if there is an agreement about it.
Yes, and Yossi, we do have to allude to the recent diplomatic pressure that has been put on by some countries over the ongoing humanitarian situation within Gaza. Do you think that this deal could come at the right time geopolitically for Israel, where it has been facing pressure from some world leaders over the situation that people are living in the enclave?
Yes, in a way, yes. I think that we have started delivering aid to Gaza even without the ceasefire, the temporary ceasefire, and without the deal. But the deal is going to ease the pressure on the population as well. And that's one of the reasons why Hamas is so eager to have it. And it might have changed its position, because Hamas is under a lot of pressure from the population and also from within its own ranks. There are reports about difficulties Hamas has in paying salaries to their people because they were not able to take over the aid that Israel is moving in. And actually today we started delivering aid in a new system that would prevent Hamas from looting the aid that's coming in and turning it into a major source of income for themselves. So if there is an agreement that allows us to deliver aid in a way that does not fall in the hands of Hamas, that is the most important thing. Otherwise, and I think this is what Hamas wants, Hamas wants a ceasefire so that the aid will come back to its control, and they will take it over and sell it to the Gazans in very high prices. That's what the Hamas is trying to accomplish.
Absolutely, Yossi. And to bring an end to our discussion following this breaking development that we have had, I want to talk about the feeling within Israel and the optimism that some families might have hearing the reports that are coming through about a potential hostage release, not just looking at the families of those with hostages still being held dead and alive, but also the feeling of the whole of Israel. How positive will it be and how heartwarming will it be to see the loved ones reunited with their families after such a long period of time, 20 months in captivity following the devastating 7th of October attacks of 2023?
It would be amazing. Everybody's going to be extremely happy if something like that is going to happen. We're, I think, 2 or 3 days short of 600 days in captivity for these hostages. It's unbelievable. and it's unacceptable. And I think that if we can bring home some of the hostages, everybody's going to be really very, very happy.
Absolutely. Yossi Kapawasa, thank you ever so much for joining us. We will, of course, be across all of the developments from these reports about Hamas agreeing to the Steve Witkoff proposal in Gaza and a potential 70-day truce in the enclave. But we move on now, and trade talks between